All right, let's just jump right into this. We're about to look at a 3,700-year-old case study on monetization that is, and this is no exaggeration, shockingly relevant for any founder today. It's a story that involves aggressive pricing, total market capture, and, get this, profound customer gratitude. I know, it sounds like a complete paradox, right? So let's dig in and figure out how on earth he pulled it off.
I mean, this quote right here, this is the entire puzzle in a nutshell. A leader literally monetizes every single asset a customer has, down to their very last possession, and at the end of it all, he doesn't get a rebellion, he gets undying loyalty. How is that even possible? And maybe more importantly for us, what can that teach us about building a business that actually lasts?
But before we can really unpack that ancient solution, we first have to get a handle on the problem. And it's a paradox that honestly almost every single founder is wrestling with today.
So here's the situation. It's the classic founder's dilemma. On one hand, your mission, your dream is to build something your customers absolutely can't live without. But on the other hand, reality hits. You've got payroll, you've got investors, you've got the market, and none of them wait for someday. You need revenue, like yesterday. And that creates this constant tug of war between long-term value and short-term survival.
And that's where the complication comes in. That mad dash for revenue, it forces you to start optimizing for things like immediate conversions and hitting quarterly targets. And when you do that, you risk building a relationship with your customers that's purely transactional. Your product just becomes another line item, a commodity they can easily swap out for something cheaper. And that leads directly to price wars and, of course, churn.
Now you see this number, 105%. And at first glance, you might think, hey, that's over 100, that's pretty good. But this number, the median net revenue retention for SaaS companies, actually hides a huge problem. It means that for every dollar you gain from customers expanding their services, you're losing almost a full dollar from other customers who are downgrading or just leaving altogether. It is the absolute definition of a leaky bucket.
Which, of course, brings us to the big central question we're trying to answer here. How in the world do you implement a monetization strategy that is not just effective, not just aggressive, but one that actually makes your customers turn around and say, "You saved us"? Not just it's a useful tool, but "you saved us." That's a whole different ballgame.
And the answer, which our case study is going to lay out brilliantly, is something called a progressive monetization model. It's a strategy that knows how to take care of the here and now while never losing sight of a much bigger, almost transcendent vision for your customers' success. And our guide for this whole thing? Yep, a crisis manager from the Bronze Age.
So let's get into our case study. For the next few minutes, I want you to reframe the biblical figure Joseph. Don't think of him as a religious icon. Instead, think of him as a C-suite executive, a COO, who's been tasked with managing an extinction-level economic crisis. And what's so wild is just how modern and strategic his approach really was.
Just to make this crystal clear, let's translate his job title into terms we'd use today. When Pharaoh says he's in charge of my palace, that's Chief Operating Officer. All my people submit to your orders, that's full executive authority. This isn't some middle management gig. We are talking about absolute, delegated operational control over the entire Egyptian economy.
And the mandate he's given, it's staggering. I mean, think about this. He has to guide a whole civilization through 7 years of massive surplus, immediately followed by 7 years of catastrophic worldwide famine. He can't just give the food away because it would run out in a flash. He has to sell it, but in a way that keeps the country running and, keeps the people alive.
So what's his first move? It's strategically brilliant. During the good years, the boom times, he doesn't just let everyone party. He invests. He puts a 20% tax in place, not so high that it strangles the economy, but high enough to build up massive reserves of grain. He's literally building the infrastructure for the crisis he knows is just around the corner.
Okay, so the good years are over. The famine hits. And now we get to see his monetization playbook in action. This is really the core of the whole strategy, and you'll see it unfold in these incredibly deliberate, calculated phases that adapt perfectly as the crisis gets worse and worse.
It is fascinating to watch this unfold. He starts with the obvious, basic cash sales, a standard commercial transaction. But then, the money runs out. So what does he do? He pivots. He starts accepting livestock, the people's productive capital, in exchange for food. Then, once that's gone, get this, the people themselves suggest the next step. They willingly offer their land for survival, and it all leads to this final, sustainable phase,
a 20% revenue share model that keeps the system going while leaving people with 80% to rebuild their lives. Every single step is a careful escalation, perfectly tuned to the reality on the ground.
So let's just pause here for a second. This guy has just collected all their money, all their animals, and all their land. What do you expect the reaction to be? Riots in the streets, right? Resentment, rebellion? But no. Their response is the exact opposite. They say, "You have saved our lives." That is the ultimate product-market fit, the ultimate customer validation, coming from a place of genuine, heartfelt gratitude.
And here's why. This is the secret sauce. At every single stage of that crisis, the monetization strategy was designed for one primary goal: to preserve life and ensure everyone had access to food. He could have been a predator. He could have price gouged, let people starve, and just seized all their assets. But he didn't. He monetized just enough to keep the system sustainable and keep people alive. His goal was preservation, not extraction. And that right there makes all the difference in the world.
Okay, so cool story from the Bronze Age. But what does any of this actually mean for a SaaS founder today? How do we take this ancient principle and make it work for us? Let's bridge that 3,700-year gap.
See, Joseph was operating up here, at the transcendent level. He wasn't selling a convenience, he was selling survival. And this framework is a great way to evaluate your own product. So be honest. Are you just transactional? A tool that, it works? Are you transformational? Something that actually changes how your customers do business? Or are you aiming for transcendent? Solving a problem so critical that your customers would feel like you saved them.
And look, here's that 20% number again. It's so clever because the principle behind it is the ultimate sustainable pricing model. You align your success directly with your customer success. He took 20%, but he left them with the other 80% of their production to live on, to rebuild, and to thrive. The lesson is simple. If you make sure your customers win first, they'll be more than happy to share a slice of that success with you.
This whole way of thinking leads to a totally different kind of planning. Joseph was operating on a 14-year horizon. Most of us, we're stuck in a quarter-to-quarter mindset. This idea of dual calendar planning means that for every short-term goal you have, like revenue growth, you must have a matching long-term, almost eternal priority, like making sure your customers are truly flourishing. You've got to manage both calendars at the same time.
And all of this brings us to our final, and I think most crucial takeaway. It's really about completely redefining what success even looks like, shifting away from just a number on a spreadsheet to a measure of real, lasting impact.
So I'll leave you with this one question to really chew on. If your company just poof, vanished tomorrow, what would really happen? Would your customers just shrug their shoulders and find another vendor on Monday? Or would they feel a genuine, gut-wrenching sense of crisis because you were truly essential to their survival and their success? That's not a pricing question. That's a purpose question. And answering it, well, that's the real key to building a business that actually endures.